So with the news that Kylian Mbappe will not take up the option to extend his PSG contract for another season, meaning that his contract will expire next summer, suddenly meaning that the probability of a mega transfer has now significantly increased. But realistically, even with a year left on his contract, it's going to cost at least £150 million to even get PSG to listen to offers, in my opinion. As despite publicly saying that they don't want to lose him on a free next summer, I think that if the transfer offer isn't sizable, and by sizable I mean in the range of £150 to £170 million, then PSG and Qatar will see selling Mbappe as a PR disaster that isn't worth the fee. Add on to this the signing on fee, the agent fee and the salary package that this transfer will entail should be in the region of £50 to £60 million up front and another £4 to £4.5 million a month, working out at around £50 million as a base salary alone, and what you would imagine to be a 5-year contract with the option of another year. And just to put that into perspective, David De Gea was United's highest earner last season, with a salary of £20 million per season. And so when it comes to Mbappe, realistically it's either Real Madrid or the Premier League who are going to have the money and the attraction to make a deal happen, even if it's without a transfer fee to PSG with him going next summer, likely adding another £50 million onto what Mbappe's camp could probably get this summer. Real Madrid do seem like the obvious option, and to be honest, they probably would have been the only option if Mbappe decided to leave last summer. However, now in 2023, there's a few things that complicate it. Firstly, Vinicius, because he's so good on that left flank, legitimately top 3 players in the world alongside Haaland and Mbappe, and so there may be a bit of conflict from a positional point of view, as Mbappe does like to have the freedom to hold a position on the left side and look to drag the opposition centre-back out into a 1v1 in the channel. And whilst he often starts from a deeper position, this is exactly what Vinicius wants to do as well. And so in the final third, they both could inhibit each other's space to a degree. Also, with Harry Kane on the market and him being the perfect like-for-like replacement, and arguably an upgrade on Karim Benzema, with the Frenchman now coming off his peak of 2022, and Kane looking like he's only just entered his, could mean that Real Madrid don't push as hard for Kylian Mbappe this summer because they think Harry Kane is a better stylistic fit. To me, Real Madrid can really only afford to sign one of Harry Kane or Mbappe this summer because of the financial cost of those deals together, but also with Jude Bellingham and potentially another signing like Alphonso Davies as well. I think ideally for Mbappe, Real Madrid don't bring in Kane this summer and instead manage to do a deal for someone like Kai Havertz, who I think could cost around £60 to £70 million. And that's because then Kylian Mbappe can do one more season at PSG before going to Real Madrid next summer on a free, with part of his transfer fee from this summer going to him and his camp next summer. Plus, I actually think that Mbappe should do one more year at PSG. I do think it could get to the point where it's either this summer or no transfer to the Bernabeu if Real Madrid do bring in someone like Harry Kane alongside a Kai Havertz as well, and Rodrigo continues to develop on the right with Brahim Diaz there as well, and Vinicius having his starting spot on the left. And that is where the Premier League clubs like Manchester United and Newcastle at the moment, but under the right circumstances, potentially also Liverpool and Chelsea next summer could come into play as well. Just quickly before I go on, if you do like the content and you want to listen to something more long form, you can sign up to my Patreon podcast where you can do a 7-day free trial. I already have 2 episodes out, but I'm basically going to be just discussing the transfer news, not just from Manchester United, but from other clubs as well and other players, and I'll probably answer some questions as well. So if you do want to help support the channel and get some more long form content as well, I'll leave it linked down in the description. If Sheikh Jassim and the Qatari backed takeover do manage to do the deal to buy the club, then United are up there along with Real Madrid as potential competitors for Mbappe's signature. I also think that United could move Rashford more centrally or even over to the right of a front three to accommodate Mbappe, whereas I don't think Real Madrid can do this as comfortably with Vinicius, which does mean from a tactical point of view, Ten Hag may be able to carve out a role that suits Mbappe better than Ancelotti or the next Real Madrid manager can. Also, being in the Premier League does give United an upper hand on Real Madrid, particularly with Haaland having already proven himself in the Premier League, something that Mbappe may feel he has to do as well in order to fully cement himself as the best player in world football. From a neutral's point of view, I think you'd probably like to see Mbappe go to Manchester United and Kane go to Real Madrid. I just think whilst Mbappe to Madrid does seem like the obvious move, and at the moment I think it's the most likely, it does seem to lack the excitement that I think it would have brought if Mbappe had made that move in 2021 or 2022. Particularly because at that time Real Madrid really lacked a superstar replacement for Cristiano Ronaldo, with Eden Hazard's move being a disaster. But now in 2023, Vinicius Jr. has firmly taken on that mantle and is doing it on the left flank where Mbappe would ideally be playing. And to be honest, he comes under the same sort of positional conflict at both Newcastle and Chelsea as well, with Alexander Isak and Mykhailo Mudryk being big signings for both sides, and so from a pure stylistic and tactical point of view, Liverpool might be the best option, particularly if someone like Salah or Darwin Núñez were to go the other way to PSG to facilitate a move. Unfortunately, that's not on the table for Liverpool this summer, and so that move would have to be next summer. Chelsea as well really can't afford to do a deal this summer either, and so if Qatar can get everything finalised with United relatively soon and the money and will on both sides is there, and with PSG as well willing to do a deal, it does seem, it is feasible that with Real Madrid maybe not willing to do a deal this summer as much as they will be willing to do it next summer, may give United their best opportunity that they are going to get to land Mbappe, as next summer there's going to be a lot more interested parties, of course because there won't be a transfer fee. Now I still believe this is a stretch and there's a good chance that Mbappe doesn't even consider United a possibility, certainly under the current ownership he doesn't. However, I think people are underestimating just how sizable the impact of a Qatari takeover could be if it does indeed happen, which at the time of writing it hasn't. And with the financial stability of the Qataris behind them, United could feasibly spend between 300 million and 400 million pounds, because I also think they could probably raise between 100 and 125 million pounds in player sales. I mean, if Kylian Mbappe were to be an option for around 150 million pounds, I think you have to at least have a serious think about it. Maybe you could offer Greenwood or Sancho or both. If Greenwood isn't going to stay and United are considering a loan, which does look like the most likely option at the moment, maybe you take the opportunity to wash your hands of the situation, value him between 60 and 80 million pounds, just as a guess, and then pay another 70 to 90 on top. PSG may even take an interest in Jadon Sancho, who should be valued between 60 and 70 million pounds as well. Players like Anthony Martial, Wan-Bissaka and Lindelof, all with 1 year left on their contracts, could all be options as well and be used as makeways, with all being valued between 15 to 25 million pounds, only less because of their contract situations. On PSG's end, they can only let Mbappe go if the right players are coming in. Leao has just signed a new contract at AC Milan, which means a 50 to 60 million pound deal that could have been done this summer because he had 1 year left on his contract has now become a 130 to 150 million pound deal. The same price will probably be quoted for Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen, and even if PSG could prize Vinicius Jr. or Erling Haaland away, they're going to cost that much as well. For me, it makes sense for PSG to take the financial hit with Mbappe and go all in on next season, and the way I think they should go about doing it is by allowing Neymar to follow Messi out of the door without a transfer fee this summer, and bringing Bernardo Silva to play on the right hand side, likely costing around 70 to 80 million pounds from Manchester City, and also bringing Marcus Thuram on a free to compete with Hugo Ekitike for the number 9 starting spot with Mbappe to their left. That front three ahead of a midfield three of Verratti and Fabian Ruiz, either side of Mamo Ugarte, with the overlapping fullbacks of Nuno Mendes and Achraf Hakimi, seems to have the right mix between control and directness, and a centre-back partnership of Lucas Hernandez or Kimpembe when Lucas is inevitably injured, alongside Marquinhos with Donnarumma in goal, starts to look like a potential Champions League winning lineup. Bernardo Silva provides a creative ability between the lines and a defensive work rate to produce a higher amount of output in the press that Mbappe needs, with Marcus Thuram also perfectly suited to Mbappe, as like Giroud he can drop off and link the play, allowing Mbappe to be the runner ahead. Now I did think that Julian Nagelsmann could have seen this PSG project as the one that takes him from being a potential so-called super manager to an actual super manager, with that being a category that I only think really Pep, Klopp, Tuchel, Ancelotti and Zidane are in at the moment, but it looks like talks between the German and PSG have broken down, and so my alternative choice would be Jose Mourinho. PSG also look like they want to move away from the international superstar aesthetic, which seems to have failed with Messi and Neymar, and move to more of a French identity, keeping Mbappe for one more season and going for the Champions League with all their focus, and then look to replace him next summer with one of Kvaratskhelia, Leao or Vinicius Jr., if any of those were to become available, whilst also bringing in other French talents like Maxime Kakare, Mouani, Rayan Cherki, Mike Maignan and Moussa Diaby for example, in order to start to establish a greater French identity throughout the whole squad. And I think it is important for PSG because of their unique position in football, where they are a super club who aren't in a super league and so don't have the same prestige of a Real Madrid or Barcelona, which I do think in the coming years will become a cost to PSG when attracting the biggest talents. If I'm focusing on PSG's long-term identity, they need to go for the Real Madrid model, Being France's club just as Madrid is the club synonymous with Spain, but with the glamour and almost arrogance that Madrid styles so perfectly. And I think this is something that Manchester United could also do, because you'd probably say that if England had a team like Spain, France and Germany do, it would be Man United because of the amount of success with English players the club has had. And so like PSG, I don't think it would be a bad idea for United to prioritise building a really strong core of English players, like they had during Fergie's last great team with Rio Ferdinand, Gary Neville, Paul Scholes, Wayne Rooney, Alan Smith, Wes Brown, and even the likes of Ryan Giggs, John O'Shea and Darren Fletcher, who are also from the British Isles. But now obviously you don't sign mediocre players just because they are English, or pay extortionate transfer fees and wages for them, which United have certainly done in the past, but with the likes of James Maddison, Mason Mount and Harry Kane all potentially being available this summer, and key English players like Marcus Rashford, Wan-Bissaka, Jadon Sancho, Luke Shaw and even Mason Greenwood already in the squad, United can look to build a squad that has a heavy English identity, which I think is definitely something that can be beneficial for big clubs, with the likes of Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Real Madrid and Juventus all being testaments to this, with all being able to rebuild and recreate multiple successful sides throughout the past 15 to 20 years. And I think having a strong core of domestic players is a attributing factor, as you constantly have those key players remaining at the club season after season. But I am still questioning whether Mbappe would even look to leave PSG this summer, let alone come into Manchester United, as at the moment Mbappe is the centrepiece of the club. And whilst they've got him, I think they should use him, because if Mbappe wins the Champions League next summer and then leaves, I think that's mission complete. And it will prove PSG were right not to sell Mbappe for big money a few years ago, or even this summer. Otherwise, without a Champions League, it has to be considered a failure. If the Real Madrid deal seems too complicated, and Mbappe sees a move to Madrid later on in his career as a better option, which is feasible as he could do 3 or 4 years at United, then in that situation I think a move to Old Trafford could make a lot of sense. Without even looking at it from an on-pitch point of view, Mbappe would be the type of marquee signing that the new Qatari regime would see as ideal, whilst also keeping Mbappe out of the clutches of Florentino Perez and Real Madrid. If Mbappe was signed either this summer or next summer, I think he immediately goes in as a centre forward, with Marcus Rashford starting from the left and one of Antony or Greenwood starting from the right. Now in the build-up phase, this front three gives United a lot of pace in behind, and so naturally, rather than asking Mbappe to play the Harry Kane role of dropping off and looking to find space in behind the opposition's midfield when they push up onto United in their defensive third, instead Mbappe is going to hold a high position and look to pin the centre-backs backward. And so the result of this is that rather than creating space in behind the opposition's backline, which Kane's movement would do as he would pull them deep, pulling the centre-backs out of that central space in the back line, opening up the space for Antony and Rashford to make those diagonal runs into. Instead, Mbappe's advanced positioning is going to create space in front of the opposition's back line and in behind their midfield. And so this means that rather than players like Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount looking to make runs ahead of the striker and looking to receive the ball in behind the back line, with Mbappe, because that space isn't going to be created as frequently, they are instead going to look to hold positions between the lines, receive the ball, and then look to link with the front three from there. But I also think we could see a lot of positional fluidity between the front three. If United's central midfielders ahead of Casemiro, let's say it's Mount and Fernandes for example, decide to drop deep and help United progress the ball out of the defensive third, dragging the opposition central midfielder up the pitch, Marcus Rashford, rather than holding a position high and wide on the left flank, can instead look to move in field, looking to pick the ball up in behind the opposition's midfield and turn quickly and drive forward. But what this will also allow is, because the opposition's fullback will likely get dragged in field following Rashford's movement, the space will be there in the left channel for Mbappe to swivel out, trying to pull the centre-back into a wide position and create a 1v1 in the channel. From here, if Rashford can link the play effectively with the likes of Mount and Fernandes around him, United can transition the attack quickly and look to release Mbappe down the left, or maybe even Greenwood or Antony down the right. I could also see Jadon Sancho playing this role, as he naturally likes to come in field, and his ability to link play quickly in congested areas as well as find the right pass in and around the box would definitely make him a viable candidate to play alongside the likes of Mbappe and Greenwood. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that video and you want to hear some more long form content, you can sign up to my Patreon. There is still a 7-day free trial, and then from there it's $4.50 a month, and you'll get 4 or 5 podcast episodes, maybe even more than that each month. The first 2 episodes are already out. The first one is a season review with AJ analysis, and the second one is me talking about some of the recent transfer news. But if not, make sure you subscribe to the channel and go to the description to check out some more videos as well.